You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. You always thought that you were weak, but babe, you're wrong. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Think that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling. Go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. You shouldn't doubt yourself, 'cause you're a work of art. You should know that you are perfect with those flaws. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Know that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling. Go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling. Go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Shine. Go ahead and shine, darling. Go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling. Go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine.
Oh no. Here we are with the wrong camera setting. This may happen through a few of the scenes because Sally didn't check all her scenes before we went live because I was too busy having fun speaking with our next guest. But if you're just joining us, this is Podcast Batching Day. We have already had our first guest on, which was Chris Giles talking about the power of repurposing, but we got into talking about music and DJing and lots of other fun things. If you missed the episode, it's over on YouTube. Go watch it before the edited version drops, and I made a lot of mistakes there, so thank you, Ma, who will fix that. And up next, she's feeling well and healthy, and she's finally here. We have Katie FAWKES joining us all the way from Ecamm. But look, guys, if you love our podcast, you have to remember, go and chat with Dr. Sparkle, right? She's so super cute, and she will make sure that you get hooked up with reminders every single time we do Podcast Batching Day. And if you like all the other stuff that we do and teach, then subscribe to the channel, hit the ding dong bell for notifications, and also head to this link right here, because that one is actually going to show you all the other events that we do in your own time zone outside of the stuff over on YouTube. But here we are today, Podcast Batching Day, officially the last day before holidays, before Christmas holidays. Now, I probably will still work because I love what I do so much, but officially the team is on break at the end of today. So what a great way to finish my year with our next guest. Today, we are going to be chatting with the Director of Marketing at Ecamm. I love my Ecamm fam, literally, because 2022 has been the year of Ecamm. I've been learning all the things and then bringing my graphic design skills in, using Canva, and also with the help of Anna and Fulgence and Doc Rock as well, learning all the things. But she gets to work alongside of these amazing people and all the fabulous live streamers as well, and huge content creators out there who are really helping people to reach their goals and to grow their business using video marketing, live streaming, and all sexified using Ecamm. She's been working in the world of marketing for her entire career. And the coolest thing is that she keeps chickens in her backyard? All right. Okay. Well, I like eggs, so I'm going to find out more. Help me to give some sparkle love to our amazing guest. Hello, Katie. Give you some sparkles, baby.
Hello. All the sparkles.
Oh, look, I'll double sparkle you. There we go. Well, you were sick last week and I had to impromptu do a episode which was actually really good. It made me reflect on 12 months of podcasting. And
we did an episode like that recently on our podcast. We had a guest who was unable to show up like last minute, and Doc and I were like, well, let's do a look back over the last year of podcasting. I love it.
Yeah, well, I realized, which I didn't know until then, we dropped 92 podcast episodes this year. Wow. And there'll be more, because we still haven't finished the year, but I reckon we will get pretty close to 100 episodes this year.
Congratulations.
I know.
It's so exciting.
I know. Thank you, Mar, as well, for all the hard work that she does. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is like podcasting is the way to go. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And you're going to help people with 6 reasons why they should live stream their podcast. But before we get into all of that, Katie, my lovely Ecamm fam, I want to know more about you. Tell me about your history and all the things that got you to this place where you're now like, one of the amazing faces inside of Ecamm.
Well, it's not a straightforward path.
That's okay. I love stories, and is it ever?
It's a weavy, it's a weavy story. So if you don't know me, hi. Now we're friends. Please get in touch with me and connect with me. I'd love to learn more about you. It's been a really fun journey. I'm Canadian by birth, and I'm now living full time here in the United States. I'm about an hour north of Boston. Absolutely loving it. This is my year of fully becoming an American citizen after a very long journey through all kinds of fun immigration paperwork. So if you've ever been through that process, I'm more than happy to reminisce with you and walk down some of those stories. But yeah, I started my career in copywriting and in content creation. I'm actually an English literature major. I'm an English literature and ancient history double major.
Whoa.
So I'm a little
all the things I would not be interested in.
I remember like seeing friends taking marketing classes and being like, marketing, that's ridiculous. I'm going to be a published author and I'm going to, work in the world of publishing. And I just wanted to be left alone in a back room with a cup of tea and a stack of books and a red pen. I just wanted to copy edit and work in the world of publishing. And I did get there. A little bit of a bumpy, convoluted way, but I did end up in the world of publishing, but on the marketing side of things, and found out pretty quickly that I really enjoyed creating content, starting originally in the kind of the blogging space and taking kind of blogging and newsletters and the written content out there. And then as social media became a thing, a force, I sort of had the pleasure of growing up alongside Facebook and Twitter and all of these various platforms where content creation is now, the central force of what they do. So I and then Ecamm in typical Katie format, in the same vein of saying like no marketing. I was like, video, hard pass, never ever want to be on video. I was the person who, in the few times in my career prior to Ecamm, if I had to record training videos or even be on like a video call, I'd be the one with like the video turned off, or I would have memorized the entire, my entire script. And then every time I choked over a word, been like, can we re-record that, please? Can I? And shaking, tears going down my face. The idea of being on video was always terrifying. So it was hilariously ironic that I fell into this job, and it's been a process. But because of the Ecamm fam and because of our customers who show up, every single time that I'm live and are always so incredibly cheerful and supportive and bring questions and bring excitement to everything, it's given me a level of confidence and helped me be on camera more. And the more that I've done it, the more confident that I've gotten, and the more it's helped people, which then makes me feel amazing. And so it's just been this wonderful couple of years of, learning, learning and failing and learning on camera in front of everyone, and having, all of my now friends along the ride with me. So it's been great.
Yeah, look, I can totally relate. The first time I hit that go live button, well, first it took me weeks.
Yeah, weeks.
I would walk up and no, not yet. And I'd go clean the pantry and make an excuse to like not do the thing. And then when I finally hit it, literally, I could feel the sweat rolling down my back into my butt crack. And I'm like, and then I deleted the video, which I wish I'd never done, because I would love to look back at it now. So this is a huge thing we say to our people that we, entice to finally go live. Don't delete your first one, because to be able to look back now, I think it was 2015 when I first went live. But I've watched you over the time with Ecamm really develop and, so much more confident, and like you show up now so well. But I remember where you appeared a little nervous, right? But
I was definitely nervous. I remember, one of the first jobs that tasks that I had at the company was to start a live show. The Ecamm had never done any kind of live show before. We had all of these really influential content creators and YouTubers who were, super giving of their time. They're like, we'll come on, like, we'll be interviewed by you. We'd love to be featured. And so even that in itself was hugely intimidating. But I remember Glenn saying to me, like, if you're really nervous, like, I can do the first couple of them, and like, you can just sort of help produce. And I was like, yes, you do those and I'll produce backstage. And then I felt so guilty about it that it ended up becoming this, like, Glenn does one, Ken does one, our customer support manager, Midori, would do one. And then we kind of rotate around. And that helped me build my confidence a lot. But I mean, there were definitely moments, and I'm competitive, so just letting someone else do that when I knew that it was my job to do it was hard for me. But I definitely gave that over. I was like, today I don't feel like I look my best today, or like, what happens if someone asks me a question, I don't know the answer, right? Like the fear of looking dumb on screen. Like there's just so much that goes into it that is easy for me now to say, just do it, just go live. But I totally appreciate that. Even now, when I have to record a video now, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I can, redo that or delete that one and start over.
Oh, look, I find it actually harder to record when I'm not live.
Yes.
I struggle and I fall over my tongue. I just had to do a quick VO for the podcast before you came in, and I'm like talking, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, Ma, you've got to edit that bit. And then I'm so bad at it. But on a live, you just get into a flow now. But it's taken a while to build that confidence muscle up. I'm so glad you did, because you do shine through, and all the guests and the shows. Funny thing how you said that Ecamm didn't have their own show. And I'm thinking, but the software, man, why?
Ecamm had no marketing team when I
Yeah.
joined. There were three people at the company when I joined.
Yeah.
Ken and Glenn, who are our co-founders and
Yeah.
co-developers, who had no desire to be on camera whatsoever.
They're
and
hilarious.
then our right, and then our customer support manager at the time was totally by herself as well. So
Yeah.
and she was like, she didn't want to be the public face of the company. She was already dealing with all the customer questions and such behind the scenes. So yeah, no, it was like, it's an obvious thing looking back at it to be like, obviously a live streaming company should have a live show. But I feel like the software was performing so well up until that point that, part of the initial kind of Ecamm magic was that you have all these customers who are out there creating videos for them. And so it probably didn't feel overly necessary to have a marketing person or marketing team.
Hey, Ken's there. Hey, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
Yay. Look, this is, out of all the communities that I'm in and the software, this is has to be my favorite because it's fun. It is just fun. And, being part of your recent leap into podcasting thing as well, I made so many amazing connections just being one of the guest speakers, right?
Yeah.
And I do have fun through the Vlogmas. That was when I really decided to go all in, was Vlogmas last year. And I was cutting like people's heads out and making them dance around on screen.
I know, it's so fun. Watching Vlogmas videos is my all-time favorite thing. And you know what? I'm guilty. It's the one thing I never participate in because December is so busy for me personally that I just can't commit to doing that. But I absolutely love watching all the videos. It's my favorite part of the day.
Every single time I try to do all of the days, but I usually get like one a week in. And I'm like, it'll do. I'll use the hashtag Vlogmas and do the one thing. But
exactly.
That was how I met Anna and Fulgence. And then, of course, I cut out Doc Rock's head and made it dance around, and then he's reaching out to me, and now you, and it is a tight knit little family, right? It's so great, and the fact we get to play with pretty graphics and colors all at the same time. So
yeah, it's people like you who bring tools like Canva to life in our community that give everyone such it's so inspiring to see, because I feel like video is one of those things where you don't know what ideas you may have until you see it, right? So seeing people practicing, especially during Vlogmas, and seeing people, playing around with graphics and, how they bring guests on and how they lay out their shows or how they lay out their presentations. Every time I see those videos, I'm like, oh, smart. You had your sound on flashing, and I was like, yes, sound on. I'm taking notes. I love all of that stuff. It's, everyone's so creative, and tools like Canva make it so easy to be able to just do, I can do that. And I'm terrible at graphics, but I can do that easily with tools like Canva. So
Canva's so fun. I was actually one of the really lucky ones who got to go to that big Canva event that was on recently as a special guest, and sitting up the front, they fed us and gave us wine and all the things. It was so fun. But then at that event, I was saying, I use it in Ecamm. And so I'm telling everyone about Ecamm and saying, go watch and see what you can do in your live streams using Canva and Ecamm. So I was spruiking Ecamm all over the place. It's such a fabulous, like I said, I love this community so much. We're actually here to talk about a topic.
I know, yeah.
Right?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So our topic today is, you wanted to share 6 reasons why you should live stream your podcast. So I'm going to let you go through your 6 reasons of why you should stream podcasting and why they go hand in hand.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be bad. And I was thinking about this a lot. And I feel like 6 reasons why is really, it's like a wonderful gimmick. But I think instead of just listing off 6 reasons, I want to just really talk to you all. And it relates back to what we just talked about. Video can be incredibly time consuming and incredibly scary. And there's a lot that goes into it. And, many of us kind of get daunted by the idea of getting it perfect and having this, ability to edit, and should I hire an editor or not? And there's, a ton that kind of distracts from the content and the mission and the audience and the goal. And so what I would say to all of you rather than listing it all off, which I was going to do. But I'm like, you know what? Let me just sell you on this for a minute. I would challenge all of you that that the act of live streaming your podcast actually will make things significantly easier for you and will give you permission to set down your perfectionism and focus on the content and focus on the people and focus on the reasons why you wanted to start a podcast in the first place. Because honestly, the video part is the hardest part. So if you start with it and you work through this live to tape format where, you know, as we're doing right now, things might go wrong. You've spent the work kind of planning it out and thinking through your content and getting in touch with your guests if you're having guests or your co-hosts, all of that. You've done all that in advance. And then when you're creating the content, you're just flowing through it. You're in the moment, you're caring about the conversation and the content and the people on the other side that are watching and interacting with you. And then worst case scenario, you decide later that you absolutely hate it and you need to go through and do a bunch of editing or a bunch of work on the other side. You have those files to be able to do that. You still have all of your audio that you can send out, you know, to all of the various podcast platforms. You can get it out to your Spotify and your Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music and all of those different places. But you are also building the opportunity for you to have this community. We've been talking endlessly for the last 20 minutes about, you know, about the Ecamm fam and about the Ecamm community. There is a community for virtually every single niche and topic out there. And it may start with just your best friend, your partner, your mom, your neighbor, your cousin, whoever you've lured onto your show through, you know, your social platforms or whatever else. But you'll find that there are people that enjoy spending time with you in the live audience, and you don't need to necessarily chat with them or, you know, or feature comments on screen or things like that that might detract from you being able to repurpose that video later. It might be enough to devote, you know, a little bit of time at the beginning and a little bit of time at the end to really be able to build that community each and every week. And I think what's made it really special for us as we've built our podcast this way this year is that it forces you to show up. It forces you to continue when you choke over your words or you're like, oh, shoot, that wasn't what I was going to say and my mind went a different direction. It forces you to just create the content and to just do it because you've committed yourself to showing up at a particular time and there might be people there waiting. So I think that really is the magic in live streaming your podcast, is that it is scary in concept, but the ability to do it actually will simplify and streamline your entire process and give you that permission that I think so many people are looking for to stop overthinking it and, you know, asking like, you know, should I do a podcast or should I add video to my podcast? You know, starting off with the live streaming is going to check all of those boxes right from the start. And then you can figure out, you know, how that's going to change or how you're going to use that content or what the, you know, live feed looks like compared to, you know, what the audio podcast sounds like. But you'll have all those boxes checked. You'll have the video if you need it. If you don't want to use it, great, you know, remove those replays later, but it's there. So that's my, in short, that is my reasons why I think you should do it. It's working really well for us. And it's just been such a fun, easier process than I ever would have imagined it to be.
Yeah, I love how, you know, you've got a set thing and a set time and it forces you to show up because people are waiting, right? If you are consistently doing the show at a set day and time. So we have one show that we run every Tuesday or Monday where you are, because we're in the future. Every week at the same time, people are ready. They're like, you know, setting reminders. So you have to show up. And then podcast batching day happens every 6 weeks, except Ma snuck an extra day in before the end of the year that I thought last week was the last week. And she goes, no, you've got another one. And apparently I agreed to it, which I totally forgot. But that's why I have a team.
It's exactly, right? Safety in numbers.
Safety, right? But yeah, the consistency of having you show up and you do build those confidence muscles over time. Like I do say less ums than I used to. but I still do say them. And, you know, with some fabulous tools, they're easy to cut out as well now. But the other thing I want to say is it gets you over that perfectionism. That's what you said, right? You just got to show up. You just talk about the thing that you're good at, and stuff just falls out. And I was looking back at some of our previous podcast episodes, and some of them were literally me going live. We just chopped the welcomes off at the start. We chopped off the Q&A at the end. We didn't even check the stuff in between at all. We just put it on the podcast. It was just top and tail it, I would say. Let's just go top and tail it and stick it up. And when people are listening, it sounds more authentic as well, rather than these fully highly edited shows. It's just a conversation. And people, like, I think that in the podcast space, I agree that things are much more natural now than they used to be. Even Amy Porterfield, right? She said back in the day, she would cut every out. She would shorten little spaces, like they were doing all the things. And now, because she's such a perfectionist, and we love her, but she knows that she is, and letting go of that and allowing the ums and the mistakes to just fall out now, you know, put her into that uncomfort zone. But one, it's made life easier because of it. Yeah.
And it makes it real. I feel it. Yeah. It's a better overall experience for your viewers and for your listeners, because many of them, you know, what's really cool about podcasting is that it is incredibly intimate, especially audio only podcasts, right? Because you're putting someone in your ear. You're usually spending time with that podcast, you know, in parts of your day where you have a much higher level of focus. So, you know, because you're listening, it surrounds you, right? So you feel like you have a really great relationship with those people. And so you are sort of almost breaking that authenticity if you are spending a ton of time really heavily editing it or really heavily curating that content, because you're robbing yourself and your listeners of the ability to really get to know you, mistakes and all, or, you know, how you sound and how you are. I think it's a lot of time. And I also think it's taking away from what is just can be a really real and authentic conversation.
Yeah. That intimacy is so true. I have fallen asleep with many people in bed, or my husband starts snoring and in goes a podcast, right? And then I'm falling asleep to Amy or Pat Flynn or Shalene Johnson, or even on YouTube. I've fallen asleep with you, Katie. Yes, I have.
Yeah. See, there you go. Right. Yeah. You're like, I mean, oh my gosh, like I go back and forth between video as a podcast consumer. I go back and forth between video and audio, and my days are often really busy, right? So, I mean, like everyone's days, right? So it's, you know, I'm listening to a podcast on audio only, and I'm getting the kids off to school, and I'm taking a shower and it's playing in the bathroom, and I'm running downstairs to walk the dog, and it's playing when I'm walking the dog. And then when I get into a space where I have my computer or I have a TV in the background, you know, it's playing on video, and I'm watching or I'm engaging in the chat there, and it's a different relationship, but it's the same content. It's nice now with all of the different ways that people consume content to be the podcast that's available in all the different ways that people want to consume content. You're going to have people who only will ever find you and discover you through YouTube, and that's how they want to consume content. They want that video, even if they're not actively in the chat and answering questions. They like being able to see you and to have that experience. And then there are people who are only ever going to be in the audio space. You know, that is their time away from a screen, or that is the time that that they've devoted to that, or they drive a ton, and it's like a car experience for them, right? So, but you would be missing one of those audiences by not showing up in both places. And again, I think it's not as hard or as time consuming as it seems, probably in the back of most people's mind. It's not that you need to create a video and you need to create the audio and you need to create, all these different things. You can do it one time and then just be really clever about your planning and be really clever about your workflow and how you're repurposing that content or how you're using it and where it's being consumed and how it's being consumed. So thinking through your different, your live viewers and your replay viewers and your podcast listeners, and maybe your blog post readers or your newsletter readers who are consuming, those clips and that content by reading it. It's important to think through the different audiences that are all part of your podcast world or have the potential to be.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I have the premium subscription to YouTube so I can turn it off, no ads, also turn my phone and just sit it so that the light doesn't annoy me at night. So it's like an audio version as well. So it's fabulous. But off the back end of what you said, the workflows, can you give us some tips on how to improve your podcasting workflows?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So for those of you who don't know our podcast, so we do a podcast called The Flow. We record live in front of our YouTube studio audience every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And so the format is actually really simple, and we're known for being the most and doing way too much. So we have very simple graphics, we have a very simple format, and we do that because it makes it really easy for us to have a really efficient workflow. So the promise to our viewers is that everyone that shows up in our live audience gets the content a week early. They're there with us. They can ask questions at the end. They get to really kind of have that special customized experience. And, they're able to sway the conversation even when we're not featuring comments on screen. We're aware of what they're saying or the feedback that they're giving, and their voices are heard and part of the conversation. At the end of that episode, that file then gets taken to our editor who actually produces the show. So he's got all of the files already, which is really nice. Saves us a bunch of time. And he spends a week from when we do our live stream to when the episode rolls out to all of the different podcast platforms, as well as the replay video gets put back online on YouTube. And the way that works, again, is really thinking through the format. So when we show up on our live stream, we do 5-10 minutes of welcome, introduction, hanging out with the live viewers, housekeeping, letting people know what's been going on, just kind of chatting. And then we actually stop. Most times Doc does like a countdown, he grabs water. We're like, no, we're stopping. And then we get into official kind of podcast recording mode. And at that point, we're not taking live questions anymore. We're watching the comments, and certainly that can sway the conversation, but we're not featuring them on screen or doing that. We have this flow of 3 questions that I ask that Doc and I have conversations about. So it makes it really easy then for us to trim up that content later, because we know that, this is the topic. These are the 3, most kind of interesting questions about that topic. So that could be 3 short videos. That could be 1, long replay video. That can be audiograms. That can be, put into a newsletter. It gives us a ton of ways we can break up that content later. And then at the end, live viewers only get a live Q&A. We spend time, we answer everyone's questions. At the end of that, we were then able to, as you said, to kind of trim off, right, the beginning and the end, that Q&A and the housekeeping at the beginning, because it's not relevant to our replay viewers because they've missed the experience. We don't want them to feel left out. And it's not relevant to our podcast listeners who can't see us and, weren't there and don't understand what's happening, right? So none of that is included or sent out to those people. We're thinking about those various audiences in that middle bit, because we know we need to use that content in a bunch of different ways. And so, so when Luis, our editor, is working on kind of making some pretty mild edits, as I said, we don't do a lot of editing. We just sort of do, a little bit of trimming. And if there was any kind of audio issues that have come up, we do a little bit of audio. He does a bit of audio cleaning, but that file then comes back to me. I put it through a tool called Descript, which I am a diehard fan of, and that literally just lets me get access to the transcript, and I can then edit the text, which, as I said at the top of this hour, have a writing background and an editing background, so that's my jam. I can edit a video through text, no problem, and grab that transcript. And then that goes over in time for a Doc to upload the audio only section of the show to our podcast host, Captivate. Goes out to all of the podcast places by the following Tuesday, along with the text editing into script. It becomes our show notes, becomes the closed captions that we're putting back into the video on YouTube. And then often, although I'm a little bit behind on this part, but often also becomes blog posts and newsletters and some of that written content for people who are searching and looking for things later. And that sounds like a lot, but it's such a process that it typically, for the most part, takes me, from my part of it, about an hour maybe that I do on Mondays to just kind of clean up text and make sure it's out in, different ways and the videos are uploaded. Luis is probably spending a few hours, depending on how many issues I guess there were with the video file, doing some of that cleanup. But we are also able to trim up those videos and send them over, to team members who can then post them on social to tease episodes. There's so much content because we do an hour-long podcast episode live every single week. So it's a workflow that works really well for us. And I would say the tips and the tricks in there are that it's easy for us to replicate. It's easy for us to make any tweaks or changes as we see them. The most important thing, and the thing that we can never stop doing, is showing up live every single week. Everything else we can tweak and update and, figure out how to make work. And the content engine just keeps going and keeps getting better, and we keep learning every single episode. So I would say that's the most important tip, is just, once you've started, keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of making those mistakes, because every episode you're going to learn. I think we were 3 or 4 in where we were like, oh, it's taking us a while because we're all on different time zones. And we're, once we're done recording the episode, we're usually off doing other things. We're heading to another meeting. And so we were forgetting to upload our files to FAWKES to be able to share with each other and to share with our editor. So I think it was episode 3 or 4 where we're like, oh, well, we'll just have Luis, our editor, run the show, and we'll both join as guests. And then he has all the files that we don't have to worry about sending them. So it little things like that should have been obvious to us who, work in live streaming all the time, was something we added later, because it was an easy problem to fix once we had started going, which we wouldn't have realized had we not just started trying something to see if it would work.
I love that. All of those little steps. So I'm going to get Ma to go back and listen and see if there's any of the little bits that we don't do, like me pushing comments up on during the major content in the middle, right? Yeah, probably. That's a great idea. Don't do that, Sally. So in my brain, I'm like, I see all these amazing things coming in. Don't push the button. Don't send them up onto the screen, because it could be a really important piece that the guys want to edit out. And we can do that at the end. And the other thing I heard is, what day each of the things happen, right? Yeah. So you've delegated that 1 hour on the Monday or the Wednesday or whichever day. So this is what I love: when you start to really create a sustainable business, things become predictable. You're no longer feeling like you're wearing all the hats and then this running, just hoping that something's going to stick. We know every week actually has a name in our business. So week 1 is prep week. Week 2 is pre-party week. Week 3 is launch week. Week 4 is sales week. Week 5 is follow-up week. And week 6 is break week, right? And we just know. And then in those weeks, we know what's happening. So once you get consistent, and that only happens through the doing, like you said, you continuously keep making the systems better, the workflows better, because you're like, oh, wow, I've got to send that file off. Well, no, I don't. What if they just record it at the time? My husband's standing behind the computer right now going like this. And I'm going to go, okay. Yes. You've been sick too. So if you're hearing Katie cough, she's doing very well for somebody who's been
I'm doing it.
really sick. His is more on the coffee. I have the water here. I have so many water bottles. I drink at least 3 waters a day, 3 of these a day.
Well, that's awesome.
But he brings me many, many coffees all day. So he has his own hashtag in the Sparkle world. Everyone needs a Danny, because he's always fixing things and bringing me food and coffee. Well, I
I
get to
mean,
sit
if
here
he's
and
bringing
hang out.
coffee all day, then he's a winner.
Right?
Keep that man.
Keep him. And he grinds his own beans and all the things. And I get to just sit here and hang out with amazing people like you. And, the one gift I gave him was this year I bought him a housekeeper, and she comes 5 days a week. And so I don't
Perfect.
have to do that either. It's kind of a gift to me as well.
Me too, Danny. I love it. I love it. That's incredible.
So good. Okay, so what are around the repurposing side of all of this? We've spoken about the workflow. What's some of the repurposing hacks that you could share with us?
Oh gosh. I mean, all of my repurposing hacks again just come down to planning and upfront thought on the workflow. So, I mean, all of it is obvious. Everyone listening, like I'm sure that there are people out there that are like, oh wow, like yeah, these are all obvious things. We're not reinventing the wheel here. You know that you need to be able to reach people. The places where people are, right, consuming content they're going to be consuming video, pretty heavily video, right, on all the social platforms right now. A lot of that is short form video content. A lot of it is short form vertical video content, right? So that is something you should be thinking about as you're thinking through your repurposing plan. But none of the search engines read video, right? Or read images well at all. So that's why a tool like Descript or something similar is really important. That's why it's really important to have closed captions and to have, show notes and your text, your YouTube descriptions and your titles. All of that is what's going to help people find that video. So again, part of the repurposing plan is really thinking through like, oh, okay, when we did that podcast episode, and we live streamed it and we just nailed it. But because we were live streaming it, we went off on a little bit of a tangent, and it actually went from being six things that you need to know about starting with podcasting and live streaming to Katie's live streaming and podcasting tips. Maybe I need to go back now and edit that title and description for people that are discovering it later. So now it's a little bit more accurate to what we actually talked about a little bit. You can make all of those changes as part of your repurposing plan as well. Go back in and add hashtags, double check your tags and make sure that they're still relevant. If you found out later that a guest that you brought on, has a YouTube channel that you didn't realize before, go back and add those links in, tag them, and as much kind of relevant content as you can, fit that in different places and in different ways. And then really thinking through again, like, where are those places that you can share helpful tips and tricks from your podcast episode. So we've been talking a lot on The Flow, which is a podcast about podcasting, but we've been talking a lot on it about, this idea of we need to stop. And I'm guilty of this. I'm actively learning this. I'm trying my best every time I think about it. I'm busy. So my gut reaction is always just like, I'm going to be on Sally's show. Come watch me tonight at 7:00. Here's the link, right? Like I'm like, please, like, please come and watch me. Please come and watch my show. Please come and listen to my show. Please download my podcast. Like, all of these asks on our social platforms. We've grown our social platforms this way. And instead, what we really should be doing is saying, what is the content that I'm going to share that might be helpful or relevant to someone? Can I put that out as a quote? Like, can I say, hey, maybe you've been thinking about starting a podcast. I've been trial by fire this year. And, and I'm going to share some of the tips that I learned, hanging out with Sally tonight. If you want to come check us out live, here's the link. That is going to be more enticing to someone scrolling through the feed than, hey, I'm Katie, you know me, we're friends. Please come and check out this episode.
Please,
please, right? So I'm guilty of that, and I'm trying to get better at that. And that's part of a repurposing plan as well, is really thinking through like, okay, and I do this as I'm going through the transcript. It gives me a chance to listen to the episode again, read through it again, remind myself of like what those important parts and points are. And I use that as a chance to clip that up. And whether that's actually like clipping a video and putting together a plan of how I'm going to share that. Sometimes it's just me copying the text and being like, oh, that was a really good point. That's a really great like thought leadership thing for me to share on LinkedIn later. And I don't even need necessarily to say, it's from this episode, go and listen to this full episode. Just having that pro tip is something that's going to resonate with people. And the more that they see me sharing these kinds of pro tips that are in my space, the more that they're going to say, oh, I thought you had mentioned earlier that you had a podcast. You're connecting all of that back to what you're building, right? So that's the hardest part about repurposing is it requires you to be really thoughtful and for you to really know your content. But what you need to remember is just how people are consuming content, where they're consuming content, and how you can give them helpful things that are going to be breadcrumbs that you're putting out there that will get them excited about going back. Like they're still listening. I can still consider them podcast listeners if they're literally just reading my quotes on LinkedIn that were from the podcast and they never listen or watch. They still get that content and they know that I'm an authority on that content, even if they've never ever listened at all. They are still part of that community, right? So we need to think about it that way, because there's just so much noise and so much hard selling around that we're going to lose. If that's your strategy, you're going to lose. So you need to find ways to make it valuable for people.
Yeah, I love that. And finding those little hooks, right? Those like little golden gems throughout the episode to put out there. That's really good, because my podcast manager and I were having a discussion actually before our episode today about just little ways in which we can improve, like the show up rate or the pre-advertising for the live stream and then the post-advertising for when the actual podcast itself drops. And we were sort of saying, well, yeah, sure. We think about it like on the day. All of a sudden I'm doing a story going, oh, I'm interviewing Katie and we're talking about this thing and come join us. And that's it. Where if we had actually been dropping little quotes or little hooks to entice people to join us in 2 or 3 days' time, we're going to have a higher show up rate as well, because they want to be there live. And then in post, going through Descript, pulling out those quotes, putting them on Insta and all the places with, the date that it drops and all of that as well. I think, really, really good. I mean, Amy does this really well. I've seen her every single time her podcast drops. There's a few audiograms that are coming out on that day, and she'll then usually do a story. But all of those little audiograms are coming out, a few different snippets into her Insta feed, which of course goes to all the other places. So I think that modeling of what you see other people do and slowly implementing them. Like, we are not perfect in any way, the way we promote our podcast. Our podcast to us is a nurture option. Like, we've got lead generation stuff. Like, we talk, there's 7 stages in the customer's journey, right? Stage 1, lead gen. Stage 2, indoctrination or orientation if they've never seen us before. Stage 3, nurture to convert. Stage 4, sales. Stage 5, onboarding. 6, upselling. 7, reviews and testimonials. So our podcast sits in stage 3, nurture. It's where we're not here to sell, we're here to give and nurture those people who already know us. There's a lot of people there's a few people that might discover us new through the podcast, but most of them will come from a lead gen to begin with before they come in. So now they're binging us and trying to get to know if they like us or not. And I mean, Ecamm makes that so easy to make us look very expensive and, makes us look and it's so easy. Like when I first downloaded Ecamm, I was really intimidated because it's got all these floating windows all over the place. Now when I open Ecamm, I know my scenes sit here, my overlays sit here, my sound sits there, my chat sits there. Like, they just have a home on my screen in the same place. One day I had my scenes over that side and I'm like, where are the things gone?
It's disorienting. Yeah, you're like, wait.
Where's my chat gone? And so you just eventually find where they all sit. But once you've actually created this, like all the stuff you see around, I never change it. I just change the little words at the bottom. And I could, because I would love to get in and change all the pretty stuff. Like Anna and Phil just get to do it all the time. But I've got other things to do. But you can show up, be professional on screen, and then still have that repurposing content in the back end where, we've got a decent mic. Because when you do, like, I went to Sydney and we both get to have a sexy mic today. If I interviewed you last week, this is why it's probably better that you are here this week, is my microphone wasn't doing what it was supposed to do when I was in Sydney. So we recorded straight into the Mac. And won't sound as good and as sexy as what it does with the good mic. But also, you just reference that in your podcast. That's what we did. I just said, just recorded straight into the Mac today because I'm living the laptop lifestyle. And But yeah, I do like quality sound. I think because I love music and all the things too. It kind of quality sounds important. Well, Katie, you've shed so many gems, and we always do some, sparkle questions, a little off topic, but I think we've had a little off topic along the way.
Yeah. This is the Katie off topic hour.
Yes. Okay, so I'm really interested when you were younger, what did you think you were going to be? You talked about the literature. I'm talking like primary school. Like I was going to be like a veterinarian, right? And then I'm like, that grosses me out because I don't want to cut animals open. What did you want to be when you were like really young?
I have as far back as I can remember, I've only ever wanted to be a novelist.
Really?
I can't remember anything prior to that. I feel like I went for a little bit through like a marine biologist phase until I realized that was like a lot of science, of which I am not great at.
I think it just sounds really cool because I did as well.
Cool,
and I am not a science nerd. I'm your, graphic designer art kind of person, right? Yeah. And also,
I probably not when I was really little. I went through a couple of phases of like, I really wanted to be a lawyer for a while. And then I really, really wanted to be like in the, like crime scene investigation when CSI was really big. And I honestly think that a lot of that stuff is just, I like the storytelling of it all. So it's like, I didn't actually have any desire to do anything other than like, wow, it could be really interesting stories.
My daughter actually said the same thing. She said she wanted to be a CSI just from watching all the CSIs. And I think the marine biologist was because I went out onto the Great Barrier Reef and it was like super amazing floating around and snorkeling. And the next thing I wanted to be a marine biologist. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And Danny has just arrived with the coffee.
Yay!
Freshly ground.
Jealous. It's too late for me for coffee, and now I'm going to be sad.
I can have a coffee as a nightcap and still go to bed. So
sometimes I can, and then others I can't. So it's like it's a little risky, for sure.
We actually, if anyone has any questions now, also now's the time for you to ask away. Drop any questions that you may have for Katie.
Someone asked here just one question. Can I answer this one really quick? Yeah, there you go. I beat you to it. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Yeah, let's answer this one.
I've gotten really good at this. So in Descript, I use actually I've been really bad. They recently updated it and I'm still holding strong to their classic mode, but I basically just drag and drop the video in and it populates the transcript. And then I go through and clean things up because I do my podcast with Doc and he starts the podcast by saying, "Aloha, Flow Riders," and Descript doesn't know what that means. And often he'll speak in Japanese and Descript has a panic attack about that. So I do like just mild editing to make sure that things look fine and aren't too crazy. And then when I'm done that, there is a section within Descript. If you go up to the top right-hand corner, there's like a little button that says publish, and then there's an export. You can export your subtitles, export an SRT file, and that file literally just gets uploaded with the video to YouTube. There's a section when you're uploading a video into YouTube that's like subtitles, and you're like, yes, and you upload it in, and it's magic, and it makes a really big difference in the performance of the video and just the general searchability of the video, in addition to just like, yay, you're checking a box and helping people that, need that level of accessibility. But that's it for closed captions. YouTube also has the ability, if you are live streaming, which I hope that you all will live stream, that you can, as a viewer, be able to turn on or off live captions. So YouTube already handles that. This is just kind of the added step of being able to add in that closed captions at the end.
Yeah, and being able to, fix Doc's Japanese and all of the crazy
delete.
that comes, right? And Also, I know you can go in and edit the subtitles if you're straight inside of YouTube as well, but I love how Descript has the opportunity for you to export that SRT file.
Yeah, it takes so long to do it by its. So when I first started, I was doing things like, I'm like, okay, how could I do this? If you turn on, like, I think it was a tool within Google where it was like you could turn on Google Voice and just play the video and it would listen and write it into a Google Doc. I did that for a while and that was a mess. And then trying to do it just in YouTube, it takes forever. So doing it in Descript where you have the video right next to you, because often you'll look at it and you're like, what was he saying there? And so then you can play that section back again. And then maybe there's something genius in what he or I said that you can write down as a note. So I end up usually for the most part just listening to the episode all the way through, because then it makes it easy for the couple of times that Descript misses, or it gets an accent wrong or screws up something.
And, listening back through your episodes and doing those quick edits, I sometimes and quite often I'll hear something that I've said and I'm like, oh yeah, Sally, you should totally take your own advice, because you'll say something really genius and you forget that you said it and you're like, good tip. Thank you.
Yeah. All the time. Literally every time I listen, I'm like, oh, usually Doc is saying something genius, maybe less so me, but I'm like, oh yeah, or it gives you an ideas for future episodes. We have this happen both when I'm editing as well as when we are doing the Q&A at the end. People's questions or their, sharing their experiences or their stories. I'm like, oh man, we could really do a deep dive episode on, on this topic, or we could go deeper in this and that could be an entire episode. We find guests that way. So it's having that community makes a really big difference. And really, like you said, forcing yourself to listen to your own content, which I think I've said I've been doing for years, and I have only really been doing it for the last year, is something that makes a big difference. It's time, but it does matter, and it makes you better forcing yourself to do that.
Yeah. Mr. Moderator here himself says he envies writers. Me too, because I am not a writer. I mean, I can write marketing copy because you've only got to write like a fifth grader when you write marketing copy. It's so easy. But, those people that get all fancy and stuff with the writing and enjoy the written word, like my daughter reads for pleasure. I read, like, I'll get an email and if it's too long, I'll give it to a team member and I'll say, just send me the dot points, and it'll come back with like 3 dot points from this very well written long email. I'm not reading. It's just not my thing.
Well, you are not alone. When I used to work in copywriting, it was nothing made me more sad than I would work for like, a day on some large blog post or piece of text or whatever. And then it would go through, the team, whatever, for approval. And then it would come back and they'd be like, we think we're just going to make the pictures bigger and then cut down all of this to like just this sentence. I was like, please don't do that. But yeah, it was so depressing. Or like, we don't think we need any text here. We'll just put in a photo and a video. And it's like, sad face.
Sad face. Yeah. Oh, for you anyway. Not for people like me. I ain't doing the reading. I think that's why when I got into like communication design, I love infographics, because I can make lots of words into like 3 awesome pictures that say the whole thing. All right, your next sparkle question, dear Katie, is name 3 books that have been a huge inspiration to you.
Oh, I've been asked this question so much, and okay, I'm going to be honest with everyone, and I'm trying to just be more upfront, even though it may make me look bad. I read a ton obsessively every night. I almost got to 100 books last year reading. I don't read a lot, if any, marketing related books.
Yeah.
I just like when I'm reading for pleasure and fun. I read an insane amount of murder mysteries and true crime and history and all kinds of stuff. So my all-time favorite still of the, for the last couple of years of books that I've read is Pat Flynn's Superfans, which was just a really quick and easy read and awesome. And I, on the eCam team, we do a lot of community marketing and, affiliate and referral marketing. So that was a really inspirational book for me, but I don't even think I could name 3 because honestly, I spend a lot more of my time just watching what our customers and our, and YouTubers and all kinds of content creators are doing, and I'm learning from that or from attending events and other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't do a lot of reading. So that question always gets me, and I always feel like I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't do that.
Not at all. So you're a fiction girl then. You like
Yeah.
being, taken to a far, far away land and all the crazy.
I do.
So what would be your favorite, like you mentioned a couple of genres, what would be your favorite genre or, author
Oh,
that
gosh.
you like, if they put out a book, you've got to go buy it?
So I'm recently become completely obsessed with so mystery is probably my favorite out of all the genres. And second would be young adult, but mystery is my favorite. And right now I'm reading a book series by an author named Louise Penny. So she's from Quebec, which is where I grew up. And they take place in this like small Quebec town that you can literally go and visit. So 2023, Katie is doing a literary tour to this small town. There are 18 books out so far, and I have burned through, I think I'm on book 16, and I'm getting to book 18, which is already sitting on my shelf waiting for me. And I'm like, this is going to be so sad when I get there. I'm going to be in like my book hole when I get there. But they are just really well, like, character development. Like there's a backstory that goes through, each different book that builds as you continue reading the series. And then another one that I also really love that is in that same kind of spirit, where there's are the Franny Fisher books, which take place actually in Australia and are in the 1920s, and they are wonderful. And there's a Netflix series that was equally wonderful. So being swept away back to the 1920s with like a badass female detective is just my safe space.
Well, I can totally do the Netflix side. That's totally
there
me.
you go.
I've binged,
Yes,
like my daughter is watching Breaking Bad right now, and she's like on the last season, and she's like really sad because she knows it's going to be over soon. So that's like you when you get to the end of the book series. But
I know. Yeah.
my daughter, I don't know if you do this, but my daughter actually annotates them as she goes as well, and she puts these little tags and like all down the side of her book is all these little colourful tags. You do that?
Yep. I do. And I correct them. Like, so I'm that person that in my personal copies of like Harry Potter, for example, I've like underlined things where I'm like, that's not the right word. Or like, where was your editor on this? And like, I will take my red pen and still have that moment with my cup of tea.
Oh, so funny. And she gifts a couple of her friends love reading. And so they'll buy books for each other and they'll annotate, and then they'll give each other the books, and then they'll annotate.
That's
and
genius.
they annotate swapping. So they're writing their ideas and all the things. And yeah,
I love that.
it's beautiful. I mean, I don't do the reading, but just watching her and her couple of friends swapping and annotating books all the time. And it's like their birthday presents to each other, a fully annotated book. And then it comes back to see their annotations. I'm not allowed to touch her little post-it, like, those little post-it note, little stickies for the colour. I'm not allowed to touch them. If I went into her office, I went and took one the other day, and she's like, no, they're mine. Okay.
That's incredible.
Oh, dear. Okay, so here's a good question for you. If you were interviewing you, so you and me interviewing you, what would a question be that you would have asked yourself?
Oh my goodness, these are hard Sparkle questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ma.
What would be a question that I would ask myself? Gosh, I think you asked me all of the questions that I would ask myself on at least on this topic.
Yeah.
You killed it. I can't think of anything else.
Well, that's great because I'm just a rock star at podcast interviewing.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Doc always asks that question too. That's like one of his favorites. And I feel like I've stolen it from him too. Now that I do interviews, I'm always like, what's one thing you wish people asked you? And I'm like, wow, I was so smart asking that question that I stole from Doc, and he probably stole from someone else.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think when I asked it to him, he said he words it slightly differently, but it's the same question. He loves the question. And then I paid more attention to his interviews, and I'm like, oh, there it is. There's that question. But he did actually tell me, because like I just started. I never looked at how to run a podcast, how to run an interview. I just figured, come up with 3 questions and then just kind of go with it. And
Yeah.
he made me feel so good when he was on the podcast because he goes, I'm a really good podcast interviewer. And I'm like, oh, cool. I haven't studied this or anything. I just see
Of
it.
course, all about interviewing. So hey, that's big credit coming. That's great.
Thank you. But I have found some guests, it's like, it's so hard to interview.
Yeah.
I think as we've gotten bigger and more well known, the guests are higher caliber. But in the early days, some of the guests, we ended up not even publishing the episodes at the end because it was painful to interview them, and it was just as painful for the watchers and the listeners as well. But it's so good now. We have like a high caliber guests that know their shit. They're really good at what they do. And even Ma was saying how, you all turn up now with decent mic gear and stuff like that. Where back in the day it was, their cameras are like down here and they're got the double chin going on and not good framing and all the things. But hey, it was a good place to start. And it once you get a couple of decent guests on your podcast, then other people are kind of raising their hand and wanting to be on the show too. So yeah, and podcasting is a great way to build community, joint ventures, partnerships, right? Like we have people who I've interviewed and then I'm like, can you come work for me for a little bit? So, you build those types of relationships. All right, Mar, I have not forgotten. We have a sentence that you need to say and then complete. So,
all right.
Hi, and then insert your name. Mm-hmm. And I sparkle because. So, hi, I'm Katie Fawkes and I sparkle because, and then fill in the sentence.
Oh, my goodness. This is late at night for all of this like creativity. All right. So I'm saying, hi, I'm Katie Fawkes and I sparkle because I love what I do.
So good. So the other week I said, I bet you the girls will do a mashup of all of these one day. And Ma goes, you figured out the secret.
Oh, no, you shared the secret. Oh, no.
So keep an eye out for Mar making a mashup of all of our guests saying it. But I have forgotten. Some days I forget to do it, and she's in the Google Doc, like changing the color of the sentence. It's literally in bright red, and then she highlights it, and then she changes the color. In the last interview, she's doing all of that, and above it, I was typing back to her, I love you. She's like, I love you too always. In the Google sheet, because I did remember, but she does make it stand out. Mar is saying thank you. She's an awesome podcast manager. She helps bring all of this amazingness together and get these fabulous guests on. Yes.
Makes it easy for sure.
Yeah. And Paul says you're very good at it too.
Oh, yay, Paul. I'll send that money to you later, Paul.
Whenever we have any Ecamm fam on the podcast, Paul's always there in the background cheering them on. I love it. Yeah, he's so cool. Well, Katie, thank you so much for being my final guest of 2023.
Happy holidays.
I know. What are you doing for Christmas?
Oh gosh, so I actually just moved and then I got sick, so I'm woefully behind. So it's going to be a low key, very laid back Christmas, which is perfect. I'm very excited. We're not doing anything special. We're going to eat. We're going to open gifts. And we're going to hang out in our pajamas all week. It's going to be wonderful.
Oh, nice. You don't have to do like the traveling between the houses or anything like that. Yeah,
everyone's coming to us.
Yes, and now they're all coming to us as well. So I don't have to worry if I want a few cocktails through the day. I don't have to worry. And what about New Year's? Do you do any, do you stay up and wait for the clock to tick over?
I do the most wonderful New Year's Eve tradition. I think we started it, I don't know, I want to say like 10 or 15 years ago. We have a really good friend named Chad. Shout out to Chad if he's watching us. And he lives about 2 hours or so away from us. And so we see him fairly often, but not as often as we'd like. And so he comes the week between Christmas and New Year's, and we just buy and eat all of the ridiculous snacks and foods that we want. And on New Year's Eve, we make Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington. We go out and buy like the most expensive possible cuts of meat and all the like fancy hors d'oeuvres and snacks and things. And we watch Doctor Who. Ridiculous stuff. And it's the fancy New Year's Eve parties that I always wanted to have, only it's just one friend that comes. So you don't have to worry about the house being super clean, but we dress up and we act all silly and the kids play in the other room. And it's just always super fun because there's no, it doesn't have to be perfect. And it doesn't there's just no, I can stay home. It's very easy. And it's just this very relaxing week. And we do it for the whole week in between Christmas and New Year's, where I just say no to everything else except hanging out with our one friend. And it's great. I love it.
Oh, that's so good. We actually we take, I told you about the VOZ, like the Zoom room that's open all the time. We do take 5 weeks out of that over the Christmas break, but we're still answering and helping our clients. But I did ask them the other day, I'm like, just between, Christmas Eve and after New Year's, if it's not going to, nothing, the world's not collapsing.
Break your business. Yeah, exactly.
Just let our team be.
Yeah.
Because we've got my mother-in-law coming and I'm really looking forward to just chilling at home. And, I do a bit of travel throughout the year and it's just going to be nice. I can sleep in. I can sleep in. Yeah. I can binge a Netflix series of some kind. That's my plan, is to find something to binge on Netflix. Because I do every so often I just love to find something that's been sitting there and stockpiling. I'm going to watch that one day and then I'll just binge it flat out for 2 or 3 days. And
perfect. See, that's the dream.
That's what I do.
That is my whole always Christmas. And I always feel so bad because we have so many amazing friends and always so much cool stuff going on. And I'm like, nope, this is my week to recharge. Anyone that wants to pop by and hang out with me in my space, in my world, great.
So good.
But otherwise no obligations. Low-key binge.
So good. Yeah, we used to have to do the drive around, and I'm so glad we don't have to do that anymore because, our family have all got grown up kids now. So it's not as big a deal until our kids start having kids.
There you go.
We'll have to worry about that. But she's highlighting something. Thank you, Ma. I haven't forgotten, Ma. I'm just not quite there yet. We just went off onto a tangent. She's highlighting stuff in my Google Sheet. All right, Katie, I better do this. Katie, if people want to learn more about you.
That's it. I'm not coming back on this show again. No one pitched my stuff.
Where do we do this? I love you, Ma, so much. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Where do you love to hang out the most? And,
personally, you can find me under my name. My last name is FAWKES, FAWKES, so I'm pretty easy to find. And I live almost entirely on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So definitely connect with me personally in any of those spaces. I'd love to get to know you. Katie@ecam.com. So KATIE at ECAMM.com. You can email me directly. I'm awesomely fast at email. I will get back to you, I promise. And then on the eCam side, eCam is on every single social channel. You can find the eCam community either on Discord, which is ecam.tv/Discord, or our Facebook group. You can get there quickly by going to ecam.tv/community. And they're fun spaces, and you don't have to be good at video and you don't have to be an eCam customer to come and check it out and hang out and see what people are creating. I guarantee you will find ideas and you will meet some awesome people because they're in there all the time just doing the most creative, wonderful things. It's a safe and friendly space to practice and play and get confident.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. When you watch people practicing and messing up and just trying to figure stuff out while they're streaming, it gives you the inspiration to have a go at it because you don't have to be perfect and it's such a safe space to mess up and make mistakes. And, it started for me watching Anna and Fulgence building stuff live. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. Squares and triangles and circles.
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
That's all it is, squares, triangles and circles. And when you look at all of my scenes, there's a little Canva and there's a little Anna and Fulgence, like the squares and triangles and circles. Well, there are no circles on this one, but anyway, I can't rave I just tell everyone about Ecamm and just go buy a Mac, okay? Go buy a Mac just for streaming because
it's almost Christmas, so go treat yourself.
Treat yourself. It is the best software, and it is really not that hard. Once you've got it all set up, it's just, I mean, I've got a Stream Deck and I still forget to push the buttons on the Stream Deck. I still just push the scenes on the computer screen.
Same here. It's sitting here. It's plugged in. Yeah.
But I still just have the little scenes up near the top of the camera so I can see them nice and easy. And I'm still just clicking through the Stream Deck looks good on the desk when you take a photo.
It does. It really does. Yeah. All that gear looks great, but you don't need to overcomplicate it. Is the truth.
No, I know Luria's really good at using her Stream Deck, and I'm like, I need to get better at like setting all the things up. But anyway, thank you, Katie, so much. It's been such a fun interview. Wow, look at the time. It's a good interview when I stop looking at the clock, because normally I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, okay, I've got to make sure between 40 minutes and an hour that I'm starting to wrap things up. We've gone 15 minutes over, so it means it's been a great interview. It's a great way to finish off the year with you. How good, right?
It's been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
So fun. Yes, it has been great. Imogen says, "Oh, Sally and Katie, you two make me feel great. My Stream Deck is getting dusty." Yeah, that's
all right.
okay.
It's all good.
One day, maybe it'll be the year of using the Stream Deck like it's been the year of Ecamm for me this year.
Yeah. Next year can be the year of Stream Deck.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you everyone who did join us. Look, we always have an amazing lineup of guests. Make sure that if you don't want to miss any of our live events, that you go to the calendar and subscribe and hit the little bell button over on YouTube. Our calendar has not just the events that we have for podcasting, but all the other live trainings, and we've got a really exciting announcement coming. Tune in our next live stream. I have a really exciting event that we're planning out for January for you guys as well, if you want to make 2023 better than 2022. So keep your ears to the ground on all the socials, because we'll be announcing it, I believe, either later today or Monday. Just depends how quickly we finish all the pieces, but it's so exciting. So make sure you don't miss out, because we're going to we are putting together some pretty awesome things for you in January. All right, thank you again, Katie. And never let anyone dull your sparkle, guys. Make sure you get at least one income-producing activity done each and every day, except for during Christmas and over the breaks. Like, put your feet up, eat good things, make beef Wellingtons.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to go and look up Paul Ramsey's recipe, and I'm not going to make it. I'm going to give it to my husband to make, but I'm going to go look it up, because he loves beef Wellingtons, but if it's a different recipe, he cooks something different. I don't think my daughter has had the same lunch twice this whole year, because he's always making things. We call him...
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's like a Jamie Oliver, but here in Australia. He's got all the Jamie Oliver books.
That's awesome. I love it.
Awesome. Well, guys, have a fab Christmas, New Year. I'll still be out here streaming over the break as well. We still have one stream a week, so that'll still be coming to you. But we're going to dance this out, Katie, as we finish our 2022 with Katie.
I'm not gonna change my mind. Your headstrong forward, but this time around I'm taking my time. Don't push me. I'm not coming down. I'm not giving up. Oh, don't rush me. I made up my mind, going straight to the top. My